This file is just called helper.py, and it has such a variety of unrelated functions. Seconds to strings, get album title, convert MP4 to MP3. None of these functions should be in a file with such a vague name. I need to find a better home for all of them. Hello, and welcome to Senior Code Review Buddy. My name is Chris, and today I'm going to walk you through my reasoning as I try to clean up a helper.py file in a repo I work on. As I mentioned in a previous video, link in the descriptions below, I think you should avoid having files with vague names like helper.py or utility.py. It's just not clear what code lives inside those files or what code should live inside. But sometimes these files get created when we've got a new function and we just can't figure out where it should live. So since it's helping some other function, off it goes to helper.py. And that's how I got my helper.py file, which I went through in that last video. This file was 166 lines with 8 functions. I opened multiple bugs to track moving the various functions to proper homes, which are also in the description below. And with that preamble, let's see how I cleaned up the file. This first change was easy. I had 2 functions, get album and get title. Both of these functions I extracted into a new file called audio metadata. Nice and easy. And I also moved the 2 helper functions, get album from MP3, get album from M4A, that only the get album function uses, and I moved over some constants as well that made sense to be here. Now, these constants are still used by some of the other functions in helper.py. So helper.py is now importing audio metadata, which does feel a little bit messy, but that seemed nicer than having these constants duplicated in 2 spots. And it's also telling me, I think, what code in helper.py should be getting moved over here. And with that change, let's take a quick look at helper. So we know that we got 4 functions out of it, and we really got to decrease it already. It's gone down from 166 lines to 108. That's a pretty good start. Now, since I'm still using those audio constants and we had to change it here, this seems like probably what I should try and clean up next in helper. So all of those constants are used within prepare, audio, and move. And they're all used sort of here in setting the album, setting the title, and setting the album and setting the title for M4As. So looking at this, my first thought is maybe I should create a simple set title and set album in the audio metadata file. But in looking how the code works here, the album and title are both working on the same ID3 object for MP3 or the same MP4 object for M4A. So if I have the set functions split up separately, does that mean that each of them will open a copy of these files and then save? So I'm doubling the amount of opens and saves that I'm doing. Do I modify the set functions to take in this object? Maybe. That doesn't feel great though. But looking at this and thinking, something that jumped out at me is this title handling code looks really messy. We get the title here, then based on if it's got any values or not, we do something slightly different for it. And we've got the exact same pattern down here for M4A. So since these both have the same logic doing the same thing, I'm going to punt on this set album, set title question, and I'm going to extract this title generation code into its own function. And I have now extracted this generate title. Pretty simple piece of code. But the thing that's really nice about now is look at how much cleaner the code is in prepare audio and move. Like that, I didn't realize that all of this mess was really just about how it's handling titles. Like it's much cleaner to look at this now. And looking at this, at least in this way, gives me an idea. Instead of having a set album and set title, I maybe should just have a set metadata function that takes in the title and the album and sets both of them. This is the only spot in the code where I'm setting a title or an album for these files, so they're always happening together. So having them be in a single function seems reasonable. At this point in time, it's not a huge amount of arguments I'd be passing to that function, so I think that seems good. And then that actually solves my question of like, am I having multiple copies of MP4 or ID3? Am I saving tags multiple times? Nope, because if I do it all in one function, just happens all together. So I think I should just do that. I'll just extract all of that code to one helper set metadata. And yeah, I moved that helper code to a set metadata function, and look at how much nicer this is. We just have to pass in the file, the new title, and the album, and ooh, that's just great. How good is files overall now? Sorry, not files. Helper. Man, we're down to 84 lines, almost half of the original size. This has gone pretty well. Okay, so actually, I see. I think for the next change, I should probably move these two converts out of here and into a conversion file, which actually is what I did, and it's a straightforward change. There's not really anything interesting to show you. So we'll jump to the PR after that one. So what I did next is we did have this other conversion code in our prepare audio file stuff. I just moved it over to its own little helper in the nice new conversion file. And look at how much cleaner we've got this function now. We create a temporary directory, we get a working copy, we adjust the podcast for playback, we generate the title, we set the metadata, and then we move and remove the original. Very, very nice. The last two PRs I did were pretty small and not really worth showing. First, I moved seconds to string into a new time helper file. I then moved generate title out of helper.py and put it just earlier in the process flow. Basically, instead of passing down the title prefix, I just generated the title earlier and passed that down instead. And with that, there's no more PRs left, so let's see what helper.py looks like now. And that's right. It is not quite empty, but we are down to 28 lines instead of the 166 we started with, and down to one function from the 8 we started with. Pretty good overall. Although the one function that's left, prepare audio file and move, it probably was and still is is by default, but it was the most important function in terms of flow and impact on things in the helper file before. It is the one that least should have been just shoved into a helper file. So it's a little sad that it's still the one that's here, but it's because I thought about it and I couldn't figure out where it really went or what I should be calling it, so I kind of just punted on it for a little bit. I figured, I've cleaned up this file and I've had enough other good changes that I'll leave this as a fun challenge for future Chris to solve. If you have any thoughts on how I should deal with this function, maybe you've got an idea on what we should rename helper.py to or where this should move, leave a comment down below. And with that, I've walked you through my thinking in how I've fully cleaned up helper.py, or almost fully cleaned it up. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the like button below and subscribing to the channel. If you have any comments, code you'd like me to review, or ideas you'd like me to talk about, please leave a comment below or reach me at chris@seniorcodereviewbuddy.com. Thanks, and have a great day.